Amy Pack-Beagle, and I'm the administrator of Towering Oaks Christian School. And I just wanted to have a few minutes to express just what a blessing it is this evening to be able to host this event. I know some people are joining us on live stream this evening as well, so we're grateful that you're tuning in too. And how thankful I am for our local law enforcement and the community support groups that came together to make this event possible, to share this really important information that we as parents and or anyone who works with children makes an impact on a child's life really needs to know to keep our kids safe. The world has really just become a very dark place, and the devil is crafty, and things seem tempting, and he really tries to infiltrate our kids' minds through social media, music, television, alcohol, drugs, sexual perversion, peer pressure from other kids. Our purpose tonight is to make sure that we can inform you and talk with you about some ways that this may happen that you may not be aware of. If you have not been able to visit a table out front before the event, I highly encourage you to look afterward. I beseech you to stay actively involved in your child's life by talking, looking through their phones, in their rooms, and praying for them. At this time, I'd like to introduce our senior pastor, Brother Tommy, who's going to talk with you a little bit about some parenting tips this evening and what the Bible has to say.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I told the sheriff before we started, I said, I wish this was mandatory for every parent, because most people are just totally blind and ignorant of what's going on out there, and then many who know what's going on say, not my kid. And a lot of people who have said that have regretted it. Thank you, Amy. We are so fortunate to be able to host a Christian school here as part of the ministry we have. But you know, we believe that a total person, that everybody has a spiritual side as well. And there's a verse that, Joe, here we go. We want to show you tonight, and we just want to talk for just a couple of minutes. Your child, wise or otherwise. There's a wonderful book in the Bible that maybe you've discovered before that helps with wisdom for raising your children, and that's the book of Proverbs. And I noticed that they put one of the verses on from Proverbs 22 up that said, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he will not depart from it. But you can start in the very first chapter. In chapter 1 and verse 8, there's this verse that says, my son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. And then right on down to verse 22, it tells us as well that how long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. As you study the book of Proverbs, what you find out is the little children start out as simple ones. But if they don't get what they need to get, they grow into scorners, and then they move on from there to become what the Bible calls a fool. And maybe when we talk about the word fool or scoffer or naive, we need to we need to understand what that means. It's not talking about their mental ability. They may knock the charts off the IQ test. As a matter of fact, many of them do. But it refers to their moral state and who's devoid of spiritual understanding, what it means to be a good citizen. So that word that's there that says simple ones, some translations say naive children or naive teenager. You can write open-minded child there, because our children start off as open books, and we write on those pages of their minds. Then the word scorners, you can write the word smart aleck there. And then for the word fools, you can say rebel. And we see the challenge that's been there all along. We think it's new to our generation. Just the consequences have changed. But in fact, you can remember that wasn't that long ago that your parents were once in your shoes. The naive, the open-minded, gullible teenager, the smart aleck, the rebel, and all of those things are there. And you see, a fool is not born. A fool is self-made. And we want to raise our children, and it's got to start preventative up front. When they're 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, those kids are picking up a lot. There's the progression from the naive to the scoffer to the fool. And I would plead with you, don't wait till your child is a fool or a scoffer to begin. Some people wait too late before they start educating their kids and pouring into their kids. And it's getting younger and younger. These law enforcement officers can tell you, these things that used to take place when we were teenagers now is in the upper children's grades. So you can't start too early educating your kids. As the verse said, train up a child in the way he should go. So you got to begin early to train your child. He begins as a simple person. He begins as a naive person. But if you don't pour into it and start right then, they become a cynical person, a scoffer, and then they become a callous person or a fool. And that's where, unfortunately, we catch most of the problems with our kids. So let me tell you about the naive child. You talk to your child while they're still naive, and that's generally up until about the 4th grade. Until about the 4th grade, your children think the parents are the best thing since sliced bread. But then about that time, they begin to question everything you say and do. And so you need to watch there. Proverbs 19 has a verse for us that we might want to get. I didn't put it up there, I'm sorry. But it says, strike a scoffer and the naive will take notice, that they may become shrewd. Reprove one who has understanding and he will gain knowledge. There's a principle. When a naive teenager sees somebody get in trouble for his problems, something goes to his head and says, hey there, if I do that, this happens. I used to tell my kids all the time, experience is not the best teacher. Somebody else's experience is the best teacher. When you see that they do something and this is the result, you ought to be smart enough to know, hey, that's what will happen to me if I do that. So you've got to begin real early. In chapter 21 of Proverbs, the principle is like this. If you see a naive teenager see somebody get in trouble for something, there's that law of sowing and reaping that you have what happens. Chapter 21, it says, when the scoffer is punished, the naive becomes wise. That's an important principle. You need for your children to see what happens when they follow certain roads and routes. Children today see people living the easy life. They see people selling drugs, arrested one day, on the street the next day. And what does that say to them? I would say to you parents, quit protecting your children from the consequences of their actions. You ought to put your child in the car and take them to the ER and let them see what comes in, the results of the things that have happened. Let them see that drunk that's out there in the gutter covered with flies and vomit. Take them to the psychiatric center and let them see what happens to the drug addict. Take them to the courtroom. Spend the morning in sessions court. Let them see what the consequences are when they follow certain roads. The Bible says, smite a scoffer and the naive will learn. Don't just protect your children, prepare them for this cruel, unfair world that we live in our culture today. Begin early with them. You see, mamas and daddies, they look at their kids and they, my sweet little child, I'm going to protect them. If you do that, the day's going to come, they're not going to be under your protection, and you'll lose them very quickly. So that's the first thing. Start early. Get them to understand that what they see in the situational comedies is not the way the real world is, okay? Now, if they laugh at all these things on TV, they need to see what the real consequences are. Secondly, guard their company. Proverbs 13:20 says, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Now, what that means is, as parents and grandparents and guardians, you need to see that your children are exposed to positive influences. That's a good reason to take them to church, if nothing else. You need to have people in your home. You need to expose them to people who are upright, good, law-abiding people who have the wisdom. Use peer pressure to your advantage. Get the best friends for their friends. The Bible says a companion of fools will be destroyed. He's destined for destruction if he picks the wrong people to be his friends. You need to understand that. Invite good, wise people into your home, and don't send the kids out of the room. I don't mean big shots in society. I'm talking about people who have some good old common sense. And bring them in and expose them to that. There's one other scripture, and I'm going to close this down. Proverbs 22:10 says, drive out the scoffer, and contention will go out. Even strife and dishonor will cease. I'm talking about guarding the company of your teenager. Now, I know that there's some here who say, well, I started too late, and others of you are here, your heart is breaking because you say, I know I wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could with my kids, and my child has gone wrong. I mean, I started early, I had him in church, I taught him good things, and my child is still gone bad. But let me tell you something, God knows exactly how you feel. Don't beat yourself up too much. God had 2 children. Do you remember their names? Adam and Eve. And they lived in a garden, and guess what? They rebelled against their parent. And God had taught them, loved them, gave them a good environment, met their needs, clearly explained to them what was right and what was wrong, and what the consequences would be if they did the wrong thing. And yet an evil influence came into that garden. And they, by their own choice, chose against their Father in heaven and went the wrong way. So what I'm telling you is this. Are you going to blame God? No. Children can choose to go the wrong way if they want to. I've seen the best parents and the best upbringing end up with children who have become rebels. And I've seen some bad parenting end up with the best kids you'll ever see anywhere. So what I want to tell you is that each child has his own bend and turn. And you do your part from early on to pour into them and teach them right and wrong and those things, and choose. Teach them. Children can choose to go the wrong way. Teach them the consequences. And in your home, let them know the consequences of wrong. Don't always cover up for them. Let them know that right decisions bring good consequences, bad decisions bring wrong consequences. God will not force the control center on your children. He gives them a choice. He gives them a free will. And we need to understand the best way we can. We need to reach out to them, and it begins early. This whole thing that we're doing tonight convicted me so that when it comes this spring, I decided I'm going to take us 2 or 3 Sundays, and I'm going to address this whole thing of rearing children and raising children in a biblical way and biblical wisdom from the book of Proverbs. And I hope that you'll just pick up Proverbs and read it. And your child, wise or otherwise, start early to pour into them. Begin early, continue wisely, and pray faithfully for the children God has given you. Because some of what you're going to hear when I sit down now is going to shock you. And some of it will scare you. And what you need, and you ought to be scared. You ought to be aware of what's going on out there so that we can do everything we can to do the best we can to bring up these kids in society and the world. Look, nothing like when I was brought up. You know, we didn't have phones. We played outside until Mama yelled, come in for supper. It's not that way anymore. And you need to be aware of what's going on. Thank you for being here. And I know that Amy has already introduced. I want to say another word of prayer for these people who are going to be coming up, that God will use them and their words will be effective. Father God, we thank you for those people that you have given us in positions of authority throughout our schools, our law enforcement. We pray that you would give them wisdom as they do their best. They do it because they love the kids, Lord, and we know that you love them. Lord, that you love the kids more than we as parents and guardians love them. So help us, Father, to act wisely, to have good discernment, to pay attention to what's going on in our children's life, to start talking with them early, and to never quit talking. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Don't just protect, prepare. Don't just prepare, protect. Those are some of the words I want to take away from tonight, and thank you so much for saying that. That really made a profound impact on me, so I wrote it down back in my notes to say when I got up here. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to our second installment of What Your Kids Don't Want You to Know event this year. My name is Tammy Kinzer, and I'm blessed to be the Greene County Market President with Apex Bank, your community bank and the supporting partner for this event. Apex Bank is dedicated to offering the best banking and overall customer service. By providing these services, we hope to enhance the quality of life, like we're doing tonight, protect economic stability, and growth for customers and team members. Our team commits itself to teaching financial literacy in our schools and preparing with our Greenville and Greene County educational systems to help improve and focus on financial success for our students, as well as to an unwavering commitment to customer service and the communities that we serve. Our Apex team and our parent committee would like to thank you for taking time to come out to this evening and not only to learn about what your kids don't want you to know, but how you can spot and help to combat substance abuse and to help with mental anxiety issues in your home and in your community. I'd like to introduce our committee. If you're in here, please stand when I say your name. Lieutenant Teddy Long with the Greene County Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Joe Prokop with the Greenville Police Department. Amy Path Beeple with Towering Oaks. Wendy P., the Director of United Way Greene County. Travis Hoxie with the Greene County Sheriff's Department. Robert Locklear, Director of the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition. Jamie Weems, School-Based Mental Health Liaison. I love saying that word. Tasha Church, the Greene County Youth Services Officer. Leanne Spradlin, Judicial Liaison, Ballot Health Strong Futures. Cindy Wilhoit, Greene County Anti-Drug. Wayne Wilhoit, SRO here at Towering Oaks. Back to back. Cindy Bowman, High School Supervisor and CT Director. There's Cindy, thank you. And myself. I also want to acknowledge some of our officials that we have here tonight. Cindy Luttrell with the City School Board. She's somewhere in here. Cindy. Wesley Holt, Greene County Sheriff. David McLean, the Director of Greene County Schools. And Lori Wilhoit, Principal at South Greene High School. I would like to also introduce to you our team from Apex that are here with us tonight. I don't know if they came in or they're manning the table. Jeanette Edens, she's the office manager with our Bulls Gap and Moss Island offices. Tammy Pierce, office manager with our Rockville branch. And Gary Shelton, our senior commercial lender at our HA Highway branch. Thank you all so much for your support. I want to say how honored I feel to have been able to work with such talented, well-educated team members on these issues that we're going to speak about tonight. Let's face it, substance abuse, social media bullying, mental anxiety issues, these are not just a me or you problem. These are a we and us problem. Remember that. So often people say, I never thought that would happen to me. I never thought that would happen here. It happens. Be prepared. Everyone, yes, everyone, from parents, guardians, to teachers, family members, and community leaders can help educate our youth on the dangers, but we ourselves have to know what to look for, how to answer those difficult questions. Our partners that are set up in the lobby are here to help you do just that. Please make sure you visit each one of them and thank them for taking the time to come out and to help you and your students. Everyone worries about things that happen at school from time to time. Lots of students will experience something difficult or have to work through a problem during school. There's a lot of pressure to get good results. Make lots of friends, do well in every subject, and be a good student. These stressors during school can sometimes feel overwhelming. You can imagine putting yourselves in their shoes. The important thing is to recognize when there's a problem and ask for help as soon as it's needed. Our young men and women in school systems today have higher than normal stressors. Finding schoolwork difficult or having problems, concentrating in class or if others are noisy and disruptive, exam stress, tricky relationships with friends and friendship groups, not being in the clique or in how that goes, finding lunchtime difficult, particularly if you have eating problems, anorexia, bulimia, not getting along with teachers or feeling like you're labeled as trouble, bullying, problems at home, your parents' relationship, sibling issues, a housing problem, or simply feeling unsupported. Addressing mental health needs in school is critically important, and being able to recognize and support our children's mental health in schools matters because mental health problems are common and often develop during childhood and adolescence. They are treatable. Early detection and intervention strategies work. They can help improve resilience and the ability to succeed in school and in life. Remember that your input can be critical when working to create a successful behavior plan for your child as you know your child best. Our goal tonight is to give you the tools to see these warning signs, hopefully early on, and to know what to do when your kids don't want you to know. And now I would like to introduce my friend Robert Locklear, Director of the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Locklear. I'm with the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition. We're a group of volunteers and part-time associates whose mission is to learn how to foster long-term change through awareness, prevention, and treatment to create a drug-free community. We recently created a website. These are some of the activities that we're currently doing. We recently created a website, and you can find us at www.gcadc.org. We've been working with a program called Communities That Care to impact prevention and abstinence of drugs, alcohol, and nicotine in the school systems. We've partnered with caring workplaces to help connect individuals with a high-risk past with employers. We've participated in Narcan training and distribution in the community. And we've helped promote Red Ribbon Week, a celebration at Greene Middle School. Some of our ongoing goals include making the community aware that we exist and what our mission is, to participate in and spearhead community events involved in education and training, particularly when it involves substance use, to influence and educate our youth in matters involving drugs, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and to increase Narcan access and availability in the community. And if you'd like to find out more about the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition, please look us up at www.gcadc.org. Thank you.
The following scenario could happen at any given day at any given middle school or high school.
Oh my gosh! Did you see the photo that got posted of you online?
No. Where is it? How do I find it?
It's spreading around on Snapchat. I have a screenshot I can send you. Hold on.
Is it bad? How bad is it?
It's not that bad. Here.
Oh no. I cannot believe this. I look awful. Where was that even taken?
I think it's from that party last weekend.
But we were only there for like 15 minutes. We left as soon as we saw anything happening. If my parents find out we went, they will ground me for life.
We didn't even do anything. You'll be fine.
You don't know my parents.
Well, it's just on Snapchat. I wouldn't worry. They'll never see it anyway.
Check out the photo of this girl. This has to be a meme.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying. That's hysterical.
Okay, I'll get to work. This is gold.
I have bad news.
What now?
Remember that picture of you from Snapchat? Well, someone took a screenshot and made it into a meme and...
So, should I look at it? Where is it now?
well, pretty much everywhere.
What do you mean? I did not go viral.
Not exactly, but it is flying around on Instagram and Snapchat and through texts from the kids at school. They keep trying to change it to see who can make it funnier.
Oh no.
I'm sure it will pass. Nothing mean, just funny stuff like I partied too hard.
That is not funny. Remember the whole grounded for life thing? I'm dead.
Dang, someone stole my meme idea and made it better. Well, we can't have that, can we? I've got a new idea. Hang on.
How can you top that? They enlarged her eyes to make her look like a cartoon, and the caption had me crying.
Check this out.
No way. You're not gonna do that.
Watch me.
Oh no! Oh no, 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 no! What should I do?
Hey, did you finish that math homework? I'm really struggling with problem 9.
Hey, I've not finished, but we can work on it together during lunch?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Also, I have something to tell you.
What's up?
Remember that photo we thought everyone had forgotten about?
Yeah.
Well, it's back, but I'm so sorry. It is so much more worse.
What now?
Someone made a TikTok out of it. It looks like your face has been photoshopped onto another person's body or something.
What?
Yeah, a body of a woman dancing. It's pretty raunchy, actually. It's getting a lot of attention and comments.
What do I do?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, can you believe this?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Some of these comments are hilarious.
Yeah, some of them are pretty mean though.
It's just a joke. It's not a big deal.
Look at this one. This girl's so ugly, I'm tired of seeing her.
What about this? Why did she put her nasty face on that gorgeous body? That's a crime. I guess they think she did this herself. I should have signed my work.
She just wants attention. I hate her already.
I don't know what to do. It won't stop.
Just ignore them. They're just being mean.
But they just keep coming. My phone never stops buzzing or blinking at me. I try not to read them, but I can't help it.
Just hit delete. Ugh, I cannot believe someone gave out your phone number on that stupid TikTok.
I got this one today.
You are the worst. People like you should just die. What? Who says that?
I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Delete them all. Don't read them. They don't mean anything. Ugh, people will forget.
How do I forget?
She's an awful human.
I cannot believe how ugly she is.
She obviously does not have no boys are very bad.
Is she an actual
It's a crime
human?
to have to look at her face. Body
Everyone should take Sue and tell her to go away.
Why did she die?
My girlfriend loves to play this video.
She is off list.
Someone should ban her from talking. This girl, ladies and gentlemen.
Why did she just kill herself?
Let's kill her.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Weeds, and I am the school-based mental health liaison at South Greene High School. There are several of us here tonight, and we'll do some introductions here in just a little bit, but I'm here tonight to talk to you about mental health in the schools. We are very blessed to partner with the Greenville City and Greene County school systems as employees of Frontier Health to be in our schools. I have some very telling statistics because things like you just saw in the skit happen in our schools every day. It is very, very unfortunate. And I'm not, because I'm here talking about schools and mental health, I'm not saying that community mental health is not just as good. It is. We work for Frontier Health, which is a community mental health, but we offer a more accessible mental health treatment. Being at the school, building relationships with the students, letting them know that we're there every day. I can speak for me at South Greene High School, being there every day, having kids come in and just say, I just need to talk to somebody, or bringing a friend in and saying, you know, so-and-so needs to talk with you. It's very telling. A lot of times people can't get to a community mental health because of transportation, financial reasons. Parents won't bring them. There's lots of different reasons. And so as a school-based therapist, being in the school system, I feel has tremendously helped the mental health system. And it's my goal to break the stigma for that. Prior to COVID, just some statistics, 13 to 20% of children in the United States met criteria for a mental health disorder, and 5% met criteria for substance use, and only 12% of those received treatment. Also, we provide services to the teachers. Prior to COVID, 46% of teachers reported higher daily stress levels that compromised their health, and that was prior to COVID. And we all know that teachers have been challenged with learning how to teach in a totally different way than what they have before. As I said before, relationships and building those relationships in the schools with teachers, with administration, with students is key. They have to trust you in order to be able to come to you and talk to you and trust you with the things that are bothering them. So it's reported that youth are 6 times more likely to complete mental health treatment when completed in schools. Referrals can be made by parents, teachers, administration, other peers, lots and lots of things. I think we're a slide ahead. Sorry. There we go. On this slide, you'll see some of the services that we provide. Lord, I can't see this, sorry. We look at kids and talk with kids who have anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, extreme fear or worry, obsessive thoughts, social anxiety, isolation. And these services are provided to each student 100% free of charge, and it is confidential. We do not let anybody else know about these services that are being provided for each individual student unless there is a suicidal thought, and then of course we do have to address that with mobile crisis. Okay. So when we were planning this event, and there are those of us adults who were introduced earlier, I thought to myself, so we're telling parents what their kids don't want them to know, but how do we know what they don't want them to know? That's other adults telling these parents. So I randomly did a poll of 64 students in different schools in the Greenville City and Greene County school system, and asked them. Again, that relationship was important because they knew when I told them it was confidential, it was confidential. I don't have anything on here about who the kid is, what grade they're in, who their parents are, what school they go to, and I'm not going to go over these, but I thought these were very telling telling, and I also wrote down some other ones. These were actually reported from kids in our city, in our county. And you all can read those. Some of the other ones were, I don't want my parents to know my thoughts. I don't want my parents to know about my drug use or my friends' drug use. I don't want my parents to know what me and my friends talk about. I don't want my parents to know where we go when we're not supposed to. I don't want my parents to know what I think about or what I look at. I don't want my parents to know how hard it is for me to get up every day instead of laying in the bed overwhelmed and sad. I don't want my parents to know I've done several drugs, had lots of sex, and done illegal stuff. I don't want my parents to know I starve myself because they tell me I eat too much. It's very telling. And these are just, a portion of some of the things that kids say. So this is what your kids don't want you to know. Okay. Now we're going to do some introductions of the school-based mental health therapists, of course. There's me, Jamie Weeds at South Greene High School. I do have contact information on the slides if your child attends this school or you need to contact the therapist. I'm going to ask these people to stand up as I introduce them. Whitney Hull is at West Greene Middle School and McDonald Elementary. Donna Napier is at Greenville Middle School and Greenville High School. Mallory Helton, Greenville City Elementary Schools. Christy Green at Doak Elementary. Nicole Riddle at Camp Creek Elementary. Melanie Ruiz, I don't believe is here. She's at McDonald Elementary. Christy Harris is at Check It Out Middle and Check It Out High School. Amy O'Brien is at Bellaton Elementary, North Greene Middle, and North Greene High School, and she is sick tonight, so she's unable to be here as well. Just some of the statistics for the schools. I'm gonna start out by talking about just some random statistics, and then we'll go into the schools. Since COVID, 1 in 3 high school students, or 37%, experienced poor mental health. 44% of students experienced persistent feelings of sadness. 20% considered suicide, and 9% attempted suicide. So on these slides, South Greene High School, I said 21 and 22, but some of these schools did not have a school-based therapist at that time, so it's combined from there to now. For South Greene High School, students on my caseload are 127. Those are kids that I see on a consistent basis. Those don't include crisis situations or, a kid who's having an issue one particular day. These are consistently seen. And we had 12 crisis situations. That means that we prevented a child from hurting themselves. We helped them and assisted the school in obtaining help through mobile crisis. For the North Greene County schools, we had 221 students in 15 crisis situations. South Greene Middle and Doak, we had 135 in 1 crisis situation. West Greene Middle and High School, Moss Simon McDonald, 122, and the crisis situations were unknown. Check It Out Middle and High School, 189 students in unknown crisis. Greenville City Elementary, 86 per school, and 3 crisis, and Greenville Middle and High Schools was 221 and 2 crisis situations. So I don't know those totals, but think about how many students we helped and prevented them from hurting themselves when they had thoughts to do so. To me, that makes it worth coming to work every day. Thank you very much.
Greene County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant over School Resource Officers. We've got, right now, every school in Greene County has an SRO assigned, and we have 2 floaters. Several of the guys are here. If you see a guy wearing a shirt like me, holler at him and let us tell you where they're at. We get through the presentation. If anyone has any questions, we'll answer them then. 4 things that I'm going to cover tonight is what we are seeing now in schools in Greene County, what is trending and maybe coming our way, and the delta H, 9s, 10s, THC 0. I'm also going to discuss the clothing and hiding places that kids use nowadays. If you look on the screen, some of the things we're seeing, this is every day, is vape devices on the top left, the plant marijuana in the center. The photo on the right is one school's vape collection for about 2/3 of the school year. I put the picture of the kid in the hospital on the bottom. We have kids that we transported to the emergency room. We have kids in schools that we have Narcan. Biggest thing every day we face is nicotine and Delta 8, 9, 10 vape devices. So that's what I'll be kind of covering over tonight. So people wonder what we actually found in Greene County. A lot of times what we find, what we do is not public record, it involves dealing with juvenile. So you don't see in the newspaper, you don't hear a lot of what we do. But over the years, we found methamphetamine, LSD, Suboxone tablets, plant marijuana, alcohol, marijuana oils, waxes, concentrates, and edibles. And the hard drugs are not as common. We don't run across those every day, but they do surface at times in our school. Our number 1 problem again is vape devices that contain nicotine or some type of Delta or THC. Some of the things that's coming our way, we have Tiana. We've not saw it recently, but we know it is coming. We saw the Scissor, or the Lean, and I'll discuss that more here in a minute. The Kratom, and then a new trend with antidiarrheals. So if we look at Tiana is it's marketed as an antidepressant, or a mood enhancer, works similar to an opioid, can cause withdrawals similar to that of opioids, and antidepressants may even cause deeper depression than what people have when they take it. It's approved in other countries as a medication for depression and anxiety. It's not FDA approved in the U.S. This time we've not saw it in our local schools, but from our conferences and talking to some SROs in other counties, this is something that's on our radar that we're going to be facing. One thing that we have is Lean Scissor. It's a mixture of a Sprite or a 7-Up with some cough syrup and a hard candy. Basically, it's a mix that the kids will mix up, and we either see it or we don't. This year so far, we've not saw it. Last year, we didn't see it. The year before, I think we saw it occasionally. So that's something that we watch for this time of the year, because with the cold and allergy season coming on, the kids have got more access to cough syrups, and that's when they mix the cough syrups with Sprite or 7-Up and the hard candy. One thing that we have here now is Kratom. You drive anywhere around Greenville, you'll see stores lit up with the Kratom sign. Kratom is a natural herb. It's sold as a herbal painkiller. In high doses, it acts the same as an opiate. Users can experience hallucinations, tremors, aggression, and nausea. And actually, this came out of Thailand, where it's actually banned. They won't let their people or their kids have it, but they'll sell it to us. Last thing, this is a newer trend that we're seeing, is using a motor Imodium. Basically, if you use 2 milligrams of Imodium, that's what you're supposed to use. But what some of the people that's using it inappropriate, including kids, is they'll use up to 150 pills to get the same effect as an opiate or heroin. So if they take this in a large enough dosage, and it's pretty much the same as using heroin. So that's the kind of the things that we're expecting to come our way. The third thing I'm going to talk about is the Delta 8s, 9s, 10s, the stuff that adults can go buy in a grocery or a convenience store. They're all in convenience store sales. So to get to where I want to get to with the Delta 8s, 9s, 10s, the Delta 0, we got to start with regular old plain marijuana. So the active ingredient in marijuana that causes the euphoria, the different feelings, the highs, is THC. And I'm not going to try to say that word. I had Joe to say it once before. The last one we had. So anyway, when we talk about marijuana, here's where parents, we here at school, we get a kid with the Delta 8, they're like, it's only marijuana, or it's only this, it's only that. Okay? The old school marijuana from the 60s, 70s, what we're used to calling Mary Jane, gas, bud, weed, grass, had a 3 to 4% THC concentration. So then we move into the modern era where they start doing different grow operations. They specifically blend different marijuanas together. And now today's even plant marijuana is 15% THC. And that's mainly because they've using the different hybrids which combine characteristics of both. So now there's two dominant strains that we deal with is indica and sativa. So if you look at the indica, it's a fat, short-leaf marijuana plant. It causes a body high. It's a sleep aid. It increases appetite. It's a heavier high, reduces anxiety. If you look on the sativa side, it's a skinny and tall leaf. It gives you a head high, more energy, makes you more creative, can cause hallucinations, can increase focus. So when we move into the two strains of marijuana, you can take them, they combine, and that's where they make the edibles, they make the concentrates, they make the different types of devices that they smoke in school, eat, or have access to. So to get the Delta 8 and go from the old marijuana that everybody says is just marijuana from back in the 60s, which is 3 to 5% versus the stronger marijuana, how did we get to Delta 8? So in 2018, Congress passed a farm bill that basically legalized hemp. Growing hemp, you could have hemp and raise hemp with a 3% or less. But the legislature, the federal government, Congress, left a loophole. So that's where Delta 8 originating. Delta 9 is the main ingredient in THC in the marijuana. The Delta 9 is the active ingredient. Delta 8 is a molecule different. So with just a molecule different, they say it's a lighter high. You still get the hallucination, you still get all the effects of the regular marijuana. With Delta 8, it's not supposed to be strong or give you the feeling afterwards that a lot of people get with it. So the bottom line is Congress legalized hemp. What we're getting, the concentrates, and we're coming out of the concentrations, is they take hemp plants, marijuana plants, CBD, different formulas. One's involving using lighter fluid. They'll pack marijuana, CBD, hemp into a container and lighter fluid through it, and that's where they get the concentrations. Once they get the concentrated oils out, then they heat that oil into a wax or a bath. So they can process it plumb down to where at some point you're getting 90 to 95% pure THC. So this is not your plant marijuana that grandma and papa smoked on the back porch or that was alongside the roadway where it had 3 to 5% THC. What we're dealing with today is 95 to 98%. You also saw the photos of edibles that's on the screen. They market them. Colorado, California, places where marijuana is legal, you go in the store and buy chocolate bars with regular marijuana, THC, Delta-9 in them. So if it's available out there, it finds its way here. When you look at the different concentrations, they can make it into all sorts of little products, crackle. Ones we're seeing here are mostly the rosin, is where they make it into a wax, and then they'll put it in a device, heat it up. So when they do that, they're getting 90-95% pure THC. So this is not your normal marijuana that we talk about. And then if anybody remember the old Marlboro man from years ago and how they advertised cigarettes, some of the advertising nowadays on some of this stuff, none of this stuff is FDA approved. It's not been checked by anybody. Nobody regulates it. So whoever makes that badge, it could be whatever. You don't know what you're getting. Even if you're buying it from a convenience store and it's Delta 8, if it's not been stirred and you're drawing off the bottom, you could be getting actual Delta-9 THC. So that's why it's become an issue for us in the schools, because the old plant marijuana that we're used to seeing, you can't overdose. You can't smoke enough the old-timey marijuana or the modern leaf marijuana to overdose. But when you get in these concentrations, a juvenile's brain don't develop completely until they're 25 years old. So up until that age, the marijuana, the THC, going into their bodies is messing with their memory, long-term memory, and their brains are not fully developing out. So that's why we try to work as hard as we can to keep it out of our schools. And a lot of these people make this stuff, going back to the Marlboro man, they use advertising or they use packaging and see if this is something that would be more geared toward an adult or a juvenile.
You've seen these in the supermarkets for decades. Cartoon characters used to market cereal to kids. Well, now drug dealers are using these familiar favorites to play far more dangerous tricks on kids.
You don't know what's in these cartridges.
Honey Nut Cheerios, Cinnamon Toast Crunch,
It could be THC.
Apple Jacks, Fruity Pebbles, even Tricks.
It could be a lot of THC.
All filled with something more scary than a sugar rush.
If it sounds like I'm trying to alarm parents, I am.
Attorney General Dave Yost took 5 On Your Side investigators inside the state's crime lab for an exclusive look at these cereal carts seized in Northeast Ohio.
This is your local drug dealer taking a page out of Big Tobacco and Playbook and Joe Camel.
The cartridges made for vape pens look like your favorite childhood cereal. Tests show these are filled with a potent form of THC, the active ingredient in marijuana.
If you see this stuff in your kid's bedroom, you need to act. This is a different level of danger.
We would love no young person using any of these cartridges. We would love young people not using marijuana to self-medicate.
The reason? Dr. Ellen Rome, the head of the Center for Adolescent Medicine at Cleveland Clinic Children's Hospital, says THC is bad for the teenage brain.
Marijuana is not designed for young people's brains. It can have effects on encoding short-term memory to long-term memory. And we know that brains develop from birth all the way through age 26. The brain's not done developing yet.
It's small, it's easy to transport, we're very concerned about it.
It's not just tough for law enforcement to detect the THC-filled vape cartridges that started flooding into Ohio last year. It's also a challenge for parents. These don't just look like your favorite cereals. The liquid inside tastes and smells like them too. So your kid could be vaping pop, but smell like cereal.
There's no reason any high school kid ought to have a vape cartridge. You don't know what's in that cartridge.
One of the reasons that we are so concerned about it being in their school, like I said before, it's unregulated, you don't know what's in it. March 9th of 2022, we had a high school student get a hold of some edibles. They didn't think anything about it. They ate some of it, started experiencing paranoia, hallucinations. They were taken to the emergency room. Toxicology only showed THC. Last year in high school, we had a Narcan student. Normally, the Narcan don't react to anything but opiates, so you don't know what's in those things. Another high school, we had a student get a hold of a vape device that contained some type of acid to burn his throat. So if you see any kind of vape device in your home, whether you think it's nicotine, THC, deltas, whatever, reach out to your school resource officer. You can take it in, we'll check it for you. We'll have a conversation with you, and if you want to call your child in, we'll sit down and have a conversation with you and your child. So some of the overdose symptoms you can watch for are deltas, and the THC vapes are vomiting. These are all ones we've actually encountered in our schools, different schools. Vomiting, dropping blood pressure, shallow breathing, rapid heartbeat, panic attacks, hallucinations, and unconsciousness. And one I don't have on here is if your child goes from happy to mad, to calm, to mad, just abrupt mood changes in a short time. We've noticed that in our schools with some of our students. Another scary thing that we could run across is the stuff coming out of Mexico, some of the liquid oils and the stuff that we're getting in is fentanyl. If you look at the penny, if you see the penny under fentanyl there, and see the little teeny bit of white stuff, that's an overdose of fentanyl. If you look at first vial, that's an overdose of heroin. The one on the right is an overdose of fentanyl, and one even more potent than fentanyl is carfentanil, which is a elephant or a large animal tranquilizer. We do carry Narcan. The Anti-Drug Coalition offers Narcan for the public, and we're Narcanning kids in high school because of these things. And today, and on the news today, I noticed this morning where a citizen is Narcan a neighbor. So as far as the patrol goes, and the sheriff's here, he could probably comment more, we're averaging several overdoses. They're using Narcan a week in Greene County out in the community. So all the school system, all the teachers go through the training and have Narcan. All the SROs carry Narcan. Patrol carries Narcan. If you've got a available time that you can go to one of the trainings this day and time, go do it and carry Narcan. Because it may not be somebody in your family, it may not be your child, or it may not be your neighbor, but somewhere as prevalent as this stuff's getting, you may encounter having to Narcan somebody. I'm going to go into some indicators and hiding places. If you look at the next video, this is a photograph of the car. If you look on the windshield, it's got a little hang tag. If you go back to the old Dare days, or used to be drug abuse resistance education, but there's a new one out there that looks like the old Dare logo, but it's got DAP. This is a car in a high school parking lot. DAP stands for drugs are bad. If you see a kid wearing a shirt, DAB, or this logo, you might want to have a serious conversation with your child, because hats, this is a good indicator. In this vehicle, we did recover plant marijuana. The above right picture, any of the items you see there, if you see a large can of lighter fluid or butane in a child's bedroom, you might want to have a conversation with your child. If you see plastic devices with metal tips that you don't know what they're used for, you might want to have that conversation with your child. Some of the other stuff you can look for, anybody remembers the old nutcrackers from years ago? Had the one that was tied together and you cracked the nut and had all the little things, you picked the holes or the meat out of the nut. If you see some of those devices laying around, that's kind of the top left. That's what they use to get the dab out of the containers. The right side and the little black can is the dab cans. They take it out, put it in a metal device that's got a plastic grip on it. They take a butane lighter, light it, and inhale the product to get the high. The vape cartridges on the bottom, the left ones you'll encounter a lot at the store. Sometimes they're one-time use only. But when you start finding the ones that's got the glass ampoules beside the regular-looking vapes and the slimmer pens, it's time to have a conversation with your kid. It's not nicotine. This is a lot of what we're seeing with the Delta 8, and we are seeing little vials that has the California marking and the triangle marijuana leaf. And that's pure medical grade THC oil that we're finding in schools. It's regular marijuana oil that's available in California and Colorado. Summer clothing, one of them is cookies. That's a big thing going right now. We've got a t-shirt on that says cookies. The dab, stuff that acts like it's something else that has a meaning of its own. If you look in the picture on the right, you've got ready quick cans. Inhalants are still a thing, not so much as years ago, but they still turn the can over the wrong way, get the gas out of the ready whip and some of the canisters. You see a lot of packaging for cold medicines, 2-liter bottles and a lot of candy, hard candy laying around, and a lot of packages of Sudafed, anything that can be mixed together. Anything that looks out of the ordinary, just pay attention to. Clothing manufacturers nowadays, even your big name clothing manufacturers offer, one the picture on the left is a pair of boots. If you look down in, right off of the tongue is a hidden pocket. The hat, you can see how many places in that hat you can conceal stuff. So they're selling backpacks, hats, all sorts of items that has concealable pockets or places that you can hide stuff. So what do you look for besides some of the pictures that I've showed you? If it don't look right, it's probably not. Look through your kids' phones. Look through your kids' rooms. Know your kids' friends. Know everyone who will be in the house if your kid stays over somewhere, not just the parents or the other kids. Know who's going to be there. Spend time with your child every now and then where you sit down at the kitchen table and eat dinner without a cell phone. Establish the communication line, because what we found after COVID, a lot of kids for that year they were out of school lost social skills. I can stand here and text you anything hateful I want to text you and don't think about it. But I can't come face to face with you and have that conversation, because it's personal at that point, because we're two human beings. When they're texting other people, like on the skit, when they're just texting each other, they don't have to have, they're not looking at that person. So have that conversation, have the sit down time with your kid, talk to them, keep up with the trends by coming to things like this. And what we try to do is put the newest stuff out, best information that we're seeing, the most current stuff. So the slides that we've got this time, we did different from the last time we had what your kids don't want you to know. We'll answer any questions you have when we do the panel later on. Biggest thing is you listen to everything anybody said tonight. If you sit down and talk to your kid, know your kid, that's half the battle. Because if you've got a kid at home, and when they come home from school, they go straight to the room, they're on a laptop, they're on a PlayStation, they're on a cell phone, they're on whatever device. Don't let these devices and phones raise your kids. And don't let the people that they're interacting with at school raise your kids. Be a parent, raise your kids. Know what they're doing. My counterpart from Greenville PD is going to talk to you more on social media. And if anybody has any questions, we'll hear them.
All right, there we go. My name is Joe Crocop. I'm the school resource officer supervisor for Greenville Police Department. Been in law enforcement 22 years, and now in my 8th year. I'm working in the schools, done the elementary, 4 years at the high school, and now in the 2nd year in middle school HQ. So you get to see a wide variety of ages and kind of what these kids are into, what they don't want you to know about. So I'm going to share some of this about social media here with you. This is our team of veterans with the Greenville City Schools. We cover 7 locations, and we have 1 floater officer who has a K9. We like the dog better than him, but he's not bad either. So that was a new addition this year. So we're a growing unit, and we'll continue to grow in the future, looking at adding more SROs to more schools and maybe building a new school in the future. So that's coming. This graphic right here has several different social media apps on it, and it kind of explains some of the dangers that each app can present to your kids. So what I've started doing in the last couple of years is towards the end of the school year, typically we'll start going around to our elementary schools in Greenville City Schools, and I'll talk to the 5th graders that are going to be going into the middle school the next year. We'll talk about vaping and drugs, and I'll bring some vapes and show them to them. Stuff they're going to encounter when they get to middle school, trying to give them a heads up and prepare them a little bit. So this graphic here, we talk about social media a little bit, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that your kids don't want you to know, guaranteed, and some things that you probably don't know about. But when I show them this, we kind of go through some of the obvious apps up here. The first one on the top left, Snapchat. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Instagram, we'll talk about a little bit. TikTok. Anybody have kids that use TikTok? If you don't think your kids are, they are. It's right up there. YouTube is the #1 social media app. 95% of kids use YouTube, although from what I can tell from working in the schools, being around these kids, they don't really post to use YouTube, but they're on it and using it regularly, and a lot of them use it to listen to music and that kind of stuff. They don't even use, they don't know what CDs are. They don't listen to MP3s anymore. They sure don't listen to the radio. So the next one, Facebook, Tinder. Anybody heard of that? You may not want to admit to it, but I'm sure you have. What surprises me, when you go talk to these 5th graders in the schools, they've all heard of those other previous ones and they use them. I get down to Tinder and ask them if they know what that logo is. And I would guess probably about 40% of our 5th graders can tell you what Tinder is. Now to me, I find that a little bit disturbing. Because if you don't know what Tinder is, it's usually for people to find other people to meet up and have sex with. And part of the feature of that app is it has a location thing built into it. So if you go to another location in another town and you fire up Tinder, then you can find other people on that app that may want to hook up with you. So I'm just going to be a little brutally honest about some of this stuff and tell you what the kids are doing. Each one has their just selected some most popular ones because we don't have time to talk about all of them. But Facebook. How many of you have Facebook? I hate to tell you, but y'all are old. And I'm old because I use Facebook. Your kids, very rarely, they don't care about Facebook. In fact, if your kids are over 20 years old, they probably using Facebook over 20. I would say under 20, not so much. I'm in that category. I'm there with you. Looked up some stats, and a research study from 2015 showed at that time about 85% of teenagers use Facebook, even though they didn't really like Facebook. Now, as of 2022, that stat is down to, I think it was 34% of teenagers use Facebook, or say they ever have. And even Facebook's own internal stats said they expect that stat to drop by 45%. So 45% less teenage usage in the next 2 years using Facebook. Next, I want to talk about a little bit Instagram. It's popular with kids. I don't see a lot of inappropriate things on Instagram from my experience working in the schools. I can tell you we do occasionally investigate things on cell phones with teenagers, believe it or not, inside the school. So Instagram is still pretty popular. There's a direct messaging feature to it, so they can chat with people. As far as posting pictures, you don't really see too much inappropriate. Sometimes we'll run across a thread or somebody taking a picture of themselves with a gun or something that looks like a gun. So that gets our attention, that gets reported occasionally. There are government services that scan social media and can sometimes locate and identify some of those pictures that may be threatening to a school, and they can notify local law enforcement. We get those. They're pretty rare, but we have had some of those in the last year or two. I can tell you on the Instagram, one thing that some of the kids do, like in my schools, they'll set up a page, an anonymous page. So at Greene Middle School where I'm at now, I know we had one recently. It may be still active. It's called GMS Caught Sleeping, hashtag. So kids will take pictures of each other when they're sleeping in class or on a bus, conked out, drooling, and then they would post it on this account on Instagram and share it with each other. Before I get into the next app, let's just talk about what sexting is, because if your kids are involved in this, they definitely don't want you to know about it. But it is prevalent. So what it is sending or receiving sexually explicit pictures or messages using a cell phone. Kids wouldn't do that, right? So what app is this? Snapchat. So what I like to say is Snapchat's the devil. Because I can tell you that the majority of the issues that we deal with in school involving social media come from Snapchat. And I can tell you from taking up cell phones, and when you have a teenager's cell phone, that was taken up during class because they were using it and they shouldn't have been, and then we've got that cell phone sitting on a desk in the office and it's still turned on, they might get one text message, like a normal text, that you do through your phone. But in that same period of time, they probably get 8 Snapchat messages from other kids. A lot of kids that are supposed to be in class not using their cell phone. So occasionally you can see the messages pop up and see the username and recognize that that's another student. And then we'll go and get with the admin and go to class, find that other kid and take their phone. And it's kind of like this process, Snapchat's probably, I would say, one of the most used teenage apps there are. They use it for messaging each other all the time. If you're not familiar with it, the big draw to Snapchat is that the messages and the pictures you send disappear. So you can set them in there to disappear after a period of time. If somebody sends you a picture through the app and you take a screenshot of it, it's supposed to notify the sender that you took a screenshot of that picture and saved it. Otherwise, when they send a picture, they can say, okay, I'm gonna send this picture to you. You can view it for 10 seconds and then it disappears and goes away and you can't see it anymore. Well, there's ways to get around that. And I'll talk So one thing when we're looking for inappropriate pictures, and this does happen even at the middle school level, unfortunately, and definitely at the high school level, I can tell you we deal with this, I'm gonna say probably at middle school level 4 or 5 times a year, of inappropriate naked pictures being sent between students, and you're talking about 11 to 13-year-olds. So in the Snapchat app, kids don't want you to know, if you're not familiar with this, that there's a section, a folder in there called My Eyes Only. So you can save pictures to a camera roll. You can save it in a Snaps folder. But when you use the My Eyes Only folder on there, when you set it up, before you can even use it, you have to select a PIN number. Now, a lot of kids are smart enough to not select the same PIN number that unlocks their phone. It's a separate secret PIN number. So it's amazing to me when you call in these kids and you sit them down and we're sitting there looking at their phone and be like, okay, we've got an allegation, we've got credible information that you have underage child pornography basically on your cell phone. What's the PIN number to get into the My Eyes Only? You know how many kids forget what the PIN number is? It's amazing. Not joking, I'm just being totally real. We'll be sitting there with them right beside their parents sometimes, and I don't blame them. If I was in their position, I'd be like, oh, heck no. You know? But it happens all the time. So from the DA's office, when we investigate these, if we find underage pictures on a cell phone, we seize the cell phone and the cell phone is destroyed. That's because it contains child pornography, you know? But here's the problem with this, even if we destroy the cell phone, or you get on there and just delete the app, a lot of this stuff and the content is saved in the cloud, which is some server farm in Arizona that Snapchat uses to store all this data. And they get a new phone, or their buddies give them an old phone that doesn't have any cell service, but it still works on Wi-Fi. And they'll download the app, and right there they've got all their pictures back again. Amazing, right? We've had some kids that even hold 2 phones. They bring 2 phones with them to school, just planning for the time when they get caught using their phone that they can give the teacher the old crappy phone, to be honest with you. The one with the cracked screen that they don't even use, but they give them that one and keep the real phone. They're sneaky, I'm telling you. So revenge porn is something else we deal with. That's where a lot of these pictures, when we get complaints, come from. So what that is when it's posting sexually explicit images without the consent of the other subject in order to cause distress or embarrassment. So typically it's from a former partner. So what we see in schools and what your kids don't want you to know is when they're in a relationship with somebody, even middle school level, they're sending pictures back and forth. Not all of them, but I would say a lot more than you'd like to realize are. Kids are desensitized to this stuff, and it's not really that big of a deal to them. I've had kids tell me, like, well, I sent naked pictures to this boy just because I wanted him to like me. You know, and it's like no big deal. We've had boys send pictures of each other to other boys just to mess around with them when they're having a sleepover and not think anything about it. We've had an 11-year-old send pictures to a guy in California they met on Xbox. These kids just don't think about it. So typically with Snapchat, when we get involved, it's because a couple of us broke up. One person has shared some pictures with some other people and it starts spreading around. And that person sends it to 5 other people. They send it to 5 other people. Pretty soon the whole school has some naked topless pictures of your daughter. How do you take that back? You don't. So here's one other thing. This is a little interactive part. So if you use an iPhone, pull it out real quick. I'm going to show you a couple things real quick on this. And I say iPhone because according to the recent Pew Research study, 87% of teenagers in the United States use Apple products, iPhones. And when they ask what their next phone is going to be, 88% of them say an iPhone. So that's what we deal with. So open up, I'm going to tell you, go up to your Photos app and just open it up. Now scroll down to the bottom, across the bottom, and click on Albums. And scroll scroll down the bottom where it says utilities, and raise your hand if you've got a folder there that says hidden. Just a few over here. So do you know that Apple iPhone, your pictures comes with a hidden folder to hide pictures? Bet y'all didn't know that, did you? So to toggle this off and on, if you're looking at your kid's phone, you want to say, okay, what are you doing? Where are you hiding your pictures? Go in there and look and see if that hidden folder is there. Now, if it's not, back out of your phone, back to the main screen, go to settings, and then you're going to go down to, find it, I believe it's pictures. Oh, under photos, sorry. So if you go under photos, and then halfway down through there it says hidden, and then you can turn that off and on. So if nothing else, you learn something new tonight. So sometimes, not as much, but some kids will use that hidden folder to hide pictures, and they can toggle it back off and on, so when you get on there, mom and dad looks at it, they don't even know it exists. Here's another thing that we're starting to see just a little bit of, not too much. I know in the county there was a thread not too long ago using AirDrop. You guys know what that is? So sometimes kids are going into AirDrop and they are setting their AirDrop recipients to everybody on the right side. So I figure I'm going to do just a little test here. I'm going to take a picture of my wife right over there. Then I'm going to open it up and I'm going to go to send it like I want to send it to a text or an email, and I'm just going to hit AirDrop. Now sometimes on airplanes and stuff like that, people have their settings set to receive everybody's messages, not just your contacts. So right now, my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 12, 16. So far I'm picking up 16 different people right now that's got their AirDrop set. And only 3 of you are in my contacts list. So we got DA, Bagel Box, Ann's iPhone, Owen's iPhone, Christie's, Casey's, James, Kathy Noel. What I'm going to start doing is just tapping on your name and hit send, and that can start sending. So at a school recently, there was a thread somebody typed up or made a picture of, and they go into school and just start sharing it over AirDrop. And you don't even know who's sending it, typically. I mean, you can call your phone anything. So just another little tip right there. You can have your kids set it to contacts only or receiving off if you don't even use that feature. Calculator app, anybody have one of these? Every phone does, right? So iOS 16, the operating system on iPhones, this is the icon that's currently used for the calculator app. Previously, it was the one up here on the left. Now, the next 3 next to it are calculator apps that you can download on the App Store. So you gotta think, why do you want to download another calculator app if you've already got one? Well, you open up these other apps and it works like a calculator until you punch in a secret PIN number that you've set within the app. That opens up a storage space on your phone that is hidden from everybody, that you can store pictures and videos. Omegle, this is like an up and coming. We went to some training recently and they talked about this app. What it is you can download it, you get on there, and it'll randomly pair you up with people all over the world for video chats. So they said a lot of times you get connected with somebody who may not even speak your language. But the key part of it is they said, and I've not tried this yet, thinking about trying it because I'm curious. But they said within the first 5 people that it connects you with will be some male that's masturbating on camera. And if you don't like that, you can just click next and connect you to somebody else and somebody else. But it just randomly does. So I can picture some kids at a sleepover hanging out with their friends. You know, let's get on there and just see what you get connected to. Anybody heard of Be Real? So I did a little bit of research on this because it's blowing up among teenagers. So if you don't know, here you go. Be Real, 2022 App of the Year on the Apple App Store. So it takes a little bit of a different twist to Snapchat, and they believe in authenticity. So no filters, no given time for you to take a perfect picture with your hair all did and everything else. So it wants people to be real and authentic. So there's a little bit of a game. You have friends and contacts on there. So at a random time through the day, you'll get a notification from the Be Real app. And when you get that notification, you've got 2 minutes to take a selfie picture. And it takes a picture of using the selfie camera, and it takes a picture using the back camera, both of them simultaneously on your phone, and you post it to your account on Be Real. So it's kind of like a game, but here's the thing to encourage people to participate. If you don't take a picture of yourself and post it within that time limit, you don't get to see all your friends' posts of their pictures that they took that day. So every day, random time, you got to take a picture, you post it, and it's supposed to be more authentic. So that's up and coming. Several kids are using it now, and it'll continue to grow. Anybody familiar with Huggy Wuggy? This is something you'll see more in the elementary school level, but it comes from a Poppy Playtime. It's a video game. There's different characters here. Huggy Wuggy. What'd you say? Missy, Kissy Missy. Teddy was the one now popular. But basically, it's like a horror movie, but it's a video game. So you go into dark rooms and people grab you and you die, that kind of thing. So these are some scary looking little figures, but if you go on Amazon, you can find all these products that have like a kid's birthday party with, have Huggy Wuggy birthday party. And if my kid come up and said, hey, I'm gonna have a Huggy Wuggy party, I'm like, Carrie Beth, you handle that? I mean, my first response, it doesn't sound too bad, right? So you get on here and start looking at this and find out what it's about. And then, like I said, this is more prevalent at the elementary school level. A little bit of sextortion, and that's the practice of extorting money or sexual favors from somebody by threatening to reveal evidence of their sexual activity. As far as the school level and what their kids are doing, we don't see the money extortion because kids are broke, right? They're using their money. But we have seen some cases where people are using sextortion. So kind of how it works is say Johnny over here, one of his buddies sends a picture of some girl naked, and he didn't date her or anything, and he starts contacting her and be like, hey, I'm gonna pass this out to all these other people and send it to everybody else in the school unless you come have sex with me, or you send me more naked pictures. That's kind of what we see on the school level. And it's not real common, but we have seen some of those cases where they want more pictures of more sexual acts. So some tips for parents. A lot of this is obvious, but you got to know what social media presence your kids have. I guarantee it's probably more than what you realize on your kids' phones. Have the logins for those social media accounts, because your kids, if they know you have the logins and you can periodically get on there and check at any time, they're a lot more likely to obey the rules and not do inappropriate things. Kids that break policies or have issues with social media and cell phones, one tip that works pretty good, I think, is creating a cell phone contract with your kids. Limit the screen time, how late they can use it. Another thing we see occasionally is kids, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and when you look at their phone, they've been messaging and stuff, and they'll say messages from 5 hours ago. Well, if you do the math, that means the kids were up at like 3 o'clock in the morning sending Snapchat messages and stuff to their friends. And they really are. And they come into school and they're tired and irritable because they've not slept that much. Got to have consequences for the violations. You got to talk to them about social media. Number one, people aren't always who they seem to be. When I tell the 5th graders I go talk to, I'm like, if you're talking to somebody online you don't know, and they say they're like a 13-year-old soccer stud from like Morristown, and they're really good at Roblox, or Fortnite, or whatever it is at the time. I said, if you don't know 34-year-old guy sitting there naked in a chair eating a greasy chicken wing that's pretending to be a teenager. This happens all the time. Have you seen this house in the news lately? If you've watched the news in the last week or two, you probably have. So Riverside, California, this is very recent. 28-year-old male from Virginia who was training to be a police officer gets online, starts talking to a 15-year-old girl in Riverside, California. He pretends to be a 17-year-old boy online. And he finally drives to California to go meet her, goes into her house. Obviously, she gave him the address, or he found out somehow. He ends up killing the mom and the grandparents. I said this just happened like a week and a half ago. Killed the mom and grandparents, set the house on fire, and then left with the girl. A neighbor called police saying that the girl looked like she was afraid when she was leaving the house, getting into a car. And then, of course, a short time later, they see smoke coming out of the house. They ended up having a police pursuit. Shots were fired back and forth. The girl got away. She was safe. And the 28-year-old suspect, they determined, took his own life, even though the police were trying to take it for him. Deservedly so, because he was shooting at the officers. So when should a kid have a cell phone? This book is called Disconnected, and it's kind of the answer that myself and Lieutenant Long gives parents in the schools. When you're okay with your kids viewing pornography, that's about the time that it's okay to give them a cell phone. Because once they have that and they get online, you can put whatever restrictions you want on cell phone. There's YouTube videos and ways to get around those restrictions. So it's pretty sad, but that's the world we live in. The waituntil8th.org, that's a website you can check out. The recommendations now are kind of wait until your child's in 8th grade. So they start hitting that like puberty level. Maybe they're mature enough to start using a cell phone. But they're changing childcare. They changed especially during COVID. Kids were home all day, they're online all day. They're distracting, they're addictive. They cause anxiety and depression, and they also lead to cyberbullying. So we see that a lot also. We see group chats on Snapchat that occur on weekends, and all these kids getting in there in these group chats, and then they start fighting with each other. And then when they come to school on Monday, that fight and that drama makes its way into the school, and then it becomes a school issue. So just be aware of all that. Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up for our question and answer panel.
At this time, if you have a question, we'd like to be able to take it in the panel and try to answer it for you. So I'm going to hand the microphone to Owen. If you have a question, please just raise your hand and he'll bring you the mic.
First of all, the 10th grade students, y'all did a great job of your acting skills. And there is someone talking about the Narcom training testing. Sounds like it's something like an EpiPen that you can be certified to keep. What is that? Why do we need to be aware that that's even something to be certified for? Like CPR, first aid, things like that.
question, if you can ask him to say it again. I heard first aid and we didn't hear all of it.
Gotcha. Can you hear me? All right. Somebody talked about the Narcom and testing, you can be certified for it. Sounds like CPR first aid. Why do we care that it exists? Why do we care about being tested for it? Or having it available like evidence?
Okay, for those of you who may not be aware what Narcan is, it is the antidote drug for opiate overdose. And so because opiate overdose is such a widespread epidemic now, we encourage everyone to have access to Narcan. It may not be, you may not save, it may not be for your children or your grandchildren, but it may be for someone who shows up at your door because they stopped a car with someone overdosing in the car and they come up to your door saying, please help me, my friend is overdosing. Or somebody you meet on the streets. And there are trainings that the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition put together throughout the year, and we pass out Narcan samples through distribution meetings and different things. So we encourage those who don't have access to Narcan to be aware of the need and to try and get some so that you have it. And just in case, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
One thing too, what we've got, they didn't speak, we have school nurses from the county school system and the city school system, so if you have any kind of medical related questions, reference to schools, we have somebody here that can answer that too.
I probably don't, but one of the things that I get asked a lot in my position is, what happens if you give Narcan to somebody that you think may have overdosed, but it's not opioids? So what effect will it have on somebody who doesn't have opioids in their system? Will it harm them?
No, if Narcan won't cause any negative effects for anyone who's not overdosing on an opiate. It won't work if they're overdosing on something else like THC or methamphetamines or cocaine, but it certainly won't hurt. So it never hurts. If you're suspicious of an overdose, it never hurts to try Narcan. They may not like it when they wake up.
On the scissor up, I guess that's what it's called, or I don't know. How common is that these days for high schoolers and middle schoolers?
It's normally every other year, every 2 years we see it come along. It just comes and goes depending on what's trending on TikTok. If it becomes popular on TikTok, we'll see it. You never know. It's so far this year we've not saw it. And we're about to go in the school year where we would be expecting it by now or any time now. But like I say, so far, none of the county schools or that I know of, city schools, we saw it this year. So far. Well, y'all think about some more questions to ask. We're standing up here looking at you. Thank you so much. I want to thank the sheriff for giving us time. Sheriff Hope's back here. He's always supported the SRO program. He got a challenge when he first came in as sheriff. He had to fill a bunch of spots real quick, get a bunch of people into school. Him and Chief Deputy did an amazing job. They support us wholeheartedly, and thank him for letting us do this presentation. Anybody got a question now? We're getting bored up here.
I'm just curious as to where our marijuana, how are our kids getting a hold of it? Is it something that's being brought in from other parts of the country, or is it coming from locally, really close to us?
A lot of stuff we're seeing has got the Delta is the regular marijuana. It's coming to convenience stores selling. If you're 21 years of age or older, you can buy it at any convenience store the Delta 8s, Delta 10, Delta 0, THC 0. We're encountering stuff that at one time we were encountering oils that probably come across the Mexican border. We absolutely do not know what's in them. We're also encountering stuff that's legally sold in Colorado, California, makes its way here. So a lot of the edibles, the real marijuana, THC edibles, we see some of, they're coming in interstate, same way as illicit drugs. They find their way here. There's websites that'll mail it in illegally. We've actually stopped packages from coming through. It's had big packages of regular, good quality marijuana from California, Colorado that's been mailed in. It's constant. It's same as meth and heroin. It's a constant battle in the high school. Everything in the high schools, no kid should have any THC, period. Zero. We're not going to argue if it's above or below. Our thing is, if it's in school and they're a teenager, they shouldn't have any THC. Now, if you're 21 and that's your thing, it's legal. And I don't look for it to, the farther along we go, my lifetime, we'll probably see regular marijuana legalized here or something. But it still don't belong in the school.
So one of the things that I have encountered with teenagers is that when you try to speak to them about these substances, they say, well, marijuana is very safe. How would you suggest we can convince them otherwise on that?
Yeah, it's years ago, when I was still talking about my presentation in the 60s and 70s, marijuana had the 3 to 5% THC. Then over the years, it's with everything we eat or drink. They figured out a way to make a hybrid of this, add a hybrid of that, and nowadays, just your normal marijuana we're seeing is 15% THC. But what's not normal, what wasn't made or what wasn't designed to be grown is the concentrates to where they're using chemicals to get the THC out of a large amount of marijuana, filtered down into an oil and then heated into a wax. That's what we're getting nowadays is not your old-timey marijuana. It's you're talking 3 to 5% THC versus 90 to 95 or even higher percent THC in these oils and dabs and devices. And you couldn't overdose on the old marijuana. It's the concentrates and stuff. You can overdose. We saw teenagers go into psychotic episodes and blood pressure dropping, rising. Their bodies and minds are just not. It's not made for them. It's not. They can't handle it. Even one young lady we had took one hit off of a Delta 8 vape and fell down and hit her head. She just wasn't used to it. I mean, and this Delta 8 stuff, you're still dealing with the same one molecule from regular marijuana.
My question is going to shift gears just a little bit. First of all, thank you all for being here, and I especially gelled with the presentation on social media amongst teenagers. In relation to social media and mental health in schools, with the way that technology is going and career fields are going and we're getting more and more technologically based, how do you set the parameters for healthy use of technology and social media use without it becoming detrimental to mental health?
I'll just touch on my side of it from what I see as a parent of teenagers. You have to have a balance. You have to have a limit to the use of technology. There are studies that just show you that more successful kids have a balance. You know, they're going to use computers, they're going to use social media, cell phones, but it's taking that time away from it also. So there's tools that you can use. I mean, in my household, I can tell you, I use the Xfinity app, and I set some time controls on there. So on school nights after 10 p.m., the Wi-Fi doesn't work for my kids. You know, and there's cell phone restrictions that you can set up for them. But like I said, one of the biggest things that I've heard people say too is at night, to help the kids get to sleep, require your kids to set their cell phones up on the kitchen counter or in their parents' bedrooms, to where it's not even an option for them to be on it late at night. Because it's the whole FOMO thing, fear of missing out. And if your kids, their friends are all on a Snapchat group and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, they want to be on there. They don't want to miss what's going on. So they're tempted. So those are some things. Take the phone away at night and set those usage limits. I would recommend as a start.
Thank you all for being here. With the mental health in mind, what is the biggest thing that you see when kids come to you looking for help? What's their biggest issue that you've noticed that they're facing?
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, what's the biggest issue that we see?
Yeah, when they come in looking for help, and what's the biggest thing that's concerning to them that they're really having troubles with?
I would say for me, probably anxiety is one of the biggest things. I don't know if any of my colleagues have anything more so. They're giving me the thumbs up. But I think anxiety is the biggest thing that we see as mental health professionals in the schools. Of course, we talk about a lot of different things. Depression. We have some kids who don't know where they're going when they leave home or leave school. They don't have a home to go to. You know, they're the only ones working. Parents aren't working. You know, we see relationship issues definitely is a big one too. With parents, with friends, with boyfriends, girlfriends, I think. But I think anxiety probably is the biggest.
So first, thank you all for your service to our community. We really appreciate it. I've got 3 questions, kind of short. One, is marijuana still considered a gateway drug? Going back to the question over here around your argument for not doing it. I haven't heard that mentioned at all. I don't know if that's more old school.
Talk about marijuana being a gateway drug. How do you get the question?
Yes, is marijuana still considered a gateway drug? I was always taught that in Dale.
Yes, anything that affects your mind, mood, anxiety, depression, up the way you feel up, the way you feel down. Yes, it's a gateway, because what we've experienced in years past, we've had kids that I've talked to at the high school level that said they started out using alcohol and they could catch some alcohol in their parents' residence. Then they got marijuana through friends. At some point in time, the marijuana didn't stop, and then they'd go into mom and daddy's medicine cabinet and find a little something that helped them a little bit better. And then today, we'll probably be able to go down on Depot Street and I'll introduce you to them or in jail for probably methamphetamine.
Okay. And is marijuana addictive like nicotine?
Marijuana, the old marijuana, don't have the same effect on the body as the synthetic and the concentrates. And the kids that I've talked to at the high school level, that's actually, and then some at the college level that's got into the concentrates, their body does crave it at the concentration of the 90-95% level.
And my last question is related to parents that are smoking it around juveniles. I actually, we were walking through a Walmart parking lot and they passed a vehicle and it was very heavily smelling of marijuana, and there was a toddler sitting in the back seat. One, is it illegal to drive while under the influence of marijuana? And 2, is it illegal to be smoking that around children that are inhaling that smoke, I don't know if they get like, if they can get a secondary high from that.
In Tennessee, marijuana, Delta-9, or THC from regular plant-based marijuana is illegal. It's still illegal to smoke, whether you're adult, juvenile. The only issues we're having is the Delta-8 because of the Farm Bill and the one molecule change between the regular THC Delta-9 and the Delta-8 is where we're running into issues. So it would be legal for anybody to smoke regular marijuana around the child or not.
Okay, is the Delta, sorry, keep going. Does the Delta-8 smell like marijuana? Like if somebody is smoking that, or does it not have a smell because it's fake?
It can smell like Fruity Pebbles, it can smell like cookies and cream. We got one vape device out here that smells like Girl Scout cookies.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't know if we introduced Tasha Church. She's the youth services officer. So a lot of times the parent comes to me and says, my child is acting up at home, having issues, what can I do? And I give her Miss Tasha's number. So if you want to ask a question directly, you can catch her here and talk to her. She can address any issues that she can help with juvenile court. Anybody else got any questions?
Just want to thank you guys for being here this evening. First question, how do y'all go about notifying the parents that an event like this is going to be taking place? Because I got notified 2 hours before it was happening today. And I just feel like that if people was notified earlier that maybe this room would be filled up. I don't know if I missed a call or what, but I got a call from the recording from the superintendent about 4:30 today. And the other question, I'm dealing with a lot of issues with my teenage daughter on the social media. Do y'all offer, or can y'all direct a parent that doesn't know how to go through the phones, someone who can navigate through it? Because, like I'm hearing tonight, it can be hard to find the stuff that you're looking for.
If you got a phone that you're not sure about, you can go into any school, city or county, find the SRO, and they'll help you, or they'll get you in the right direction. Every city and county school has an officer in that school assigned. If he hadn't not to be there at the time or whatever, you should be able to get a hold of one of them. And just let them kind of talk to them about what kind of problem you're having, and then let them kind of run you through it. As far as getting word out, we have put flyers up. It's been on social media, the Greenville Sun, Radio Greenville. Mr. McLean, the school director, made a call out today at 4:30. We've sent information out to each school and tried to get them to include it in their material that they hand out. So if you got a better suggestion, we're wide open, because I'd love for this room to be filled with people, because probably tomorrow I'll go to school, I'll have something happen, I'll have a parent walk in and say, I wish I knew what to look for, or I wish I knew what to do. And I'm like, well, we just had something last night. If you'd come to, we could have got you started.
I just want to know, is there like some kind of slang term that maybe the kids are using these days referring to their vapes and everything else? I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only parent curious about that.
That would take an hour. There's all kinds of slang terms. Some of them I have to look up in the dictionary. We go to school, all SROs go to training every June. We spend a week learning what's trending out of LA, what's trending out of Chicago, what's trending out of all these other places, and head their way. And usually it works out pretty right. If we go to training and they say you're going to start seeing this, we do. So that's pretty accurate. Joe, you want to touch on anything else on that? Between to be honest with you, when I went and asked a kid about, when we did this program in 2019, we did it in each one of the 4 high schools. And from there to here, it's a constant battle learning, keeping up, because it changes. Because when I ask kids about Facebook, and like Jill said, they said, "You're old." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm old. I'm on Facebook." And they're like, "We do Snapchat." And I'm like, "I don't know what Snapchat is." So we have to catch up. And by the time we get caught up with what's happening today, come tomorrow, we're going to hear something we didn't know today that we're going to have to catch up with. That's like some of the apps that Joe had here. It's a constant keeping up process to try to see what we're seeing and hearing and doing.
Amy, I have a question that's kind of for you, and also for Joe and Harry. Comparatively with Towering Oaks private school compared to the public city and county schools, I don't know if this is anything that you all have discussed, the rate of drugs and other issues that you see, as far as I know, have a small private school, that it's not as much of an issue as we've seen, as maybe they see in the public schools. Is that kind of...
Yes, Laura, that is correct. One of the things that we've seen here is the Huggy Wuggy. So do keep in mind, I think as a Christian school, because we have a smaller population, we typically tend to just, know our students better and families better. Part of that is an interview process in which we take our parents through before we even allow families to come here. So, there is a like-mindedness as believers of knowing what you view as acceptable for your children and what you don't, and who you really look to for your moral compass, which is God and the guidance that's given there from families. But Huggy Wuggy is really the thing that we have seen here. And that's really sad to me, because I really feel like parents in general, whether they're parents here, county or city, they really care about their little kids, and they don't want them exposed to that. What you have to remember is a lot of parents are using KidsTube, viewing that that's a filter that makes it more appropriate for a child, and they're trusting that KidsTube has a filter on that. Well, KidsTube only filter is after so many parents complain, and then it gets taken off. So at that point, it's too late. The exposure has already happened. So that was a good question.
Yeah, just talking about the use of phones. What's the age limit, or do you have any time limit for kids bringing phones to school?
Was it about an age limit about bringing phones to school?
Well, why do they need their phones at school? I mean, I know there's situations where they might have to, because mom and dad needs them to call when they get out. A lot of kids even need their phones in school to start with.
I'll let Miss Woolsey here. She's a city school coordinator, school health, but just to touch on it briefly, there's no law. That would be a school board policy, and I'll let a school board or school employee tell you more about that.
And it depends. There are regulations as far as when the kids can have them out and that sort of thing. So they're only allowed to use them at certain times of the day. Really don't see it a whole lot in the elementary level, but kids in middle school, high school do have their phones, but they also have to have them put up during class normally, unless they're using them for some educational purpose or whatever.
How often are assemblies held within the schools, particularly the high schools, that might, in bringing all the kids together, letting them know how well they are doing as a school, as far as perhaps maybe lesser numbers of where there's been incidents of drugs on campus, and maybe say to them, this month or these last 6 months or whatever, we've scored such and such as being more productive in keeping our, drug issues down.
Now, I don't know a lot for us that we keep up numbers that we go over with the children, but I will say that we have classes. It goes from our health classes to particularly what our counselors are teaching on a regular basis as far as the dangers of drugs and that sort of things. And certainly sometimes we have our SROs come in that are doing programs and that sort of thing to educate our children. I can answer that for the city, but I'll let you all address the county.
As far as county schools, we do a program called LEAD. It's not it's similar to what Dare was years ago. We start in the 5th grade in the LEAD program where one of our guys, all 18 of us are certified to teach LEAD. All my 5th grade SROs start teaching in the 5th grade. And when you get to the end of it, it starts out with making good friends, good citizenship, basically not just drugs, but it's, how to make friends, how to know who the right friends are, how to know if you got a true friend or a friend that's using you for this or that. And then at the 5th grade level, I think it gets up maybe into prescription to where kids are starting to explore medicine cabinets, getting curious. And then in the 7th grade, we continue the LEAD program. And at the end of it starts getting into the marijuana. And then there's also a 9th grade level. So each level that we do that, plus a lot of the SROs do classes with health sciences, specifically on stuff. And then we do, with our driver's ed, we do the MAD program, we do the DUI goggles, we bring the pedal cars in, we got goggles that simulate impairment. We let the kids put the goggles on and try to drive the pedal cars through cones to kind of to see. So, we do what we can in the schools, but after the COVID, getting time with the kids is hard because there's so much put on the teachers and the education system of the state and the feds. They're going to have this, they're going to have this many points. So we try to do what we can and get what time with them that we can. As far as specifically addressing, if we have an assembly, I know in my school, if we have an assembly and we're having any kind of issues, the principal addresses it with the assembly.
So on your logo thing, touched on 3, maybe 4 of the images, but you didn't touch on the semicolon. I know it means one thing in college, but what is it in the schools when the kids are not even adults yet?
The semicolon is the standard symbol for mental health awareness. Mental Health Awareness Month is in May, and the green symbolizes that.
So it's not about after suicide going on with life?
Well, and that's where it comes in. It's the semicolon doesn't mean an ending. It means that there was a halt and then it goes on.
Going back to the Narcan, I actually have gone through the Narcan training, and I'm just kind of curious for maybe teachers like myself or parents or grandparents, anybody that would want to be prepared and have Narcan. Where's a place that we can go to acquire that, like the sheriff's department or the drug coalition, the health department, if we wanted to carry that and have that on us?
I think I understood the question. Where do you get Narcan? When are the Narcan distributions and things like that? We do, if you contact the Greene County Anti-Drug Coalition, we can give out samples of Narcan for individuals. We only have a limited amount. We're only allowed to have a certain amount per unit of time. But we also do periodic trainings and distributions. So with a month or 2 ago, we did a distribution at Walmart. We set out a table out in front of Walmart. They allowed us to set up a table, and we passed out Narcan to anyone who came by who was interested in getting some. So we do periodic, and we try to get the word out through social media, through the website, and through other areas.
Are there any further questions?
So, quick question. I think you have to use examples, I think, in every level of school to get a point across. And I realize you're talking about underage kids, okay? But when a young person is found guilty of carrying a illegal substance or doing something, whatever that penalty, how are they penalized? I mean, when they're penalized, how's it communicated to the other kids? Because you want to talk about examples. If they get to see their buddy or their girlfriend get busted, that speaks pretty loud, and I think it drives the point home for them making the right decision going forward. I'm going to ask the questions now, that way the panel can answer the questions. So I was remembering some of the numbers that was up on the screen about the number of young people that you're assisting in the different levels of school. The one that struck me the hardest was the elementary kids, the number of elementary kids that you're assisting. And that was large. When I think elementary, I'm thinking K through 5. Is that fair? And that number was very alarming to me. At middle school alone, I get it, because peer pressure, all the above. But K through 5, that's alarming. So, and I applaud you and the entire group up there for what you do and trying to help mentor our kids and try to send them down the right path. But I'm just curious, those two questions is sort of, what's the penalty, and then what direction are we, or how are you handling that K through 5 young person? Because those are such young minds that are collecting all this stuff that's going on around.
That's a great question. I don't have the answer for, so I'm going to pass it off because I'm thankful to say that's not something I've dealt with.
Is that Eugene that, well, was you been out for it? Are we addressing how we're handling consequences? Yeah, I think that was, he was kind of asking the consequence.
What the typical consequences are
And how you address that as far as talking to peers, running your peers.
I can help answer the first part, because we charge students periodically through the school year with possession of illegal substances. When we cite them, they're charged with a juvenile petition into juvenile court. They usually go in front of Judge Bailey. Now, there's a couple problems with communicating that to other kids. Number one, the juvenile records are confidential by nature. And so when they go to juvenile court, we can't even release the names of those juveniles that are charged because they're juveniles. The court records are not able to be released because they're sealed, because they're juveniles. So we can't go tell the other kids, hey, this is what this person got. Now, with that said, a lot of word of mouth spread within a school. They just get on Snapchat and they tell all their friends. I've cited kids with stuff, and they went and took the summons and the citation every class they had that day and waved around showing the rest of their friends. Now, they can do that, and it spreads, but we can't spread that around. Then there's also federal law, which is FERPA, things that happen within the school. And so the discipline is part of the student's education record, which under federal law, you cannot release. It's all confidential. And there's purposes for that because kids make dumb decisions. And you don't want that conviction and that court appearance to follow them through life and into college after they turn 18. So all those records are sealed. It's not something that's going to show up on a background check for a job 10 years down the road.
Remember when I told you Congress kind of dropped the ball on the farm bill? One thing they forgot, and one thing our state legislature has not got to the decision point to make a decision on, this Delta 8 stuff. The legislature, Congress and the state legislature is allowing this stuff, but they have no penalty set for Delta products and juveniles. So we go back and charge on either tobacco citation, if it's regular THC, we charge possession schedule 6. Most time it goes on tobacco citation. You guys are parents, you're paying $126.50. They're coming back to school. I know of an instance where the same child has been to juvenile court 2 months in a row with a tobacco citation. It's not working. Our legislature needs to look at what they've created.
Well, Teddy, to your point, I would say this. Back several years ago, before my son graduated high school, he was to wrong place, wrong time, and didn't think. Okay? He was a dumb teenager at that point in time. He made a bad decision one night, along with 2 other young men. Well, Judge Bailey knew his mother and myself, and the other parents in that courtroom that day. But guess what? Judge Bailey didn't have any. He wasn't soft at all. They paid the price. The best thing that happened that day was when Judge Bailey said, "You're going to fix what you tore up." Well, guess what? They didn't get to fix it at night. They got to go out there in the middle of the day where they could be seen. Along with, guess who? That the dads had to go with them. Okay? That's my point. Is these kids have got to. I don't want to make an example of them. But there's no better example than your buddy that you sit in the same math class with or anything else. I know some people may not agree with that, but when you're driving to work, or driving back home in the afternoons, middle today, and you see the orange jumpsuits picking up trash in the middle of the road, I'm sorry for them. I really am. I do feel sorry for them. But they made a bad decision, and they're paying that price. We're talking about young people that needs to have direction now, not at age 25 or 35 or 45. They need it now. And I don't want to embarrass them. I really don't. My son got plenty of that. He got to face it because he had to go weekly to the, sorry, I can't think of the right words right now. He had to go and report in. And so that's my point there. It's just, like I said, I don't want to embarrass these young people. I really don't. I don't want to encourage that.
You brought up a very good point, and that actually is one of the answers that I was going to address as far as the elementary school students. And I don't work at an elementary school, so if one of my colleagues who does would like to address that, they're more than welcome to. But I'll say this, there is not a lot of direction in homes like there needs to be. And that is one of the biggest issues. I see a lot of grandparents and even great-grandparents raising 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. So there's not a lot of direction, there's not a lot of structure, there's not a lot of supervision in the homes, and that's why we're seeing more issues in elementary school age now than ever before. Does that answer your question?
I think this was asked, not tonight, but somewhere I've heard it, but in Tennessee, is there any kind of, I don't know, anything in place that, like, if kids were at a party and somebody overdosed, is there anything that'll keep whoever calls 911 from getting in trouble? Because I know in some states they're starting to do that, because that's what's happening is they go to these parties, somebody overdoses, and nobody calls because everybody else is too afraid that they're going to get in trouble. Do we have anything like that in place in Tennessee?
As far as calling on an overdose, if someone reports a overdose to police, then we respond. I don't foresee the person calling at fault. There is statutes, we still talk about the kids sending the naked pictures. There is a statute that says that if said child presents to an adult that they received said image and didn't ask for it, then they cannot be charged. So Tennessee law does include in certain statutes to where you can call and report And I would assume that would be one of them, I'd have to research that, but if you want me to, I will.
Well, I kind of think maybe that would be something that would be good for the kids to know.
One thing we try to push out is anonymous reporting, and that's something we're continually having a problem with, because if we do anonymous reporting, to where kids can say, this is going on, but at what point is the kids using that to get back at their friend, or if they're having issues? So as far as, Joe, you can chime in, but if somebody calls that there's a kid down or an adult down at a party, I'm not even looking at who called. I'm just looking at getting in there, getting that kid treated. And if there's a bag of meth or fentanyl or something like that in there, then there'd be an issue, but not necessarily the one that called. And going back to your question on parenting, and years ago, the mama, daddy, kid family, that's not the norm anymore. The mom, dad, and the kid families are rare and in between anymore. Like we were talking about, a lot of grandparents, aunts, uncles, single parents, neighbors, and in the high school level, we got kids raising their slow. They don't sleep the same place every night, and they get up and get yourself to school, and they're on their own. So it's ain't like it was years ago. So we're going to kind of wrap it up. If anybody got any more questions, we'll all be milling around here somewhere and be glad to talk with you one-on-one. If you'll give me your information, I'll double check on that and get your information back to you. So we're going to wrap it up. Unless somebody's got a question, they just absolutely can't wait. Thank y'all for